So, welcome everybody to week 10. I can't believe it, week 10 of Winter Wellness with Jack and Rob. And it feels like we're almost at the end, Jack Green.
Only a few weeks left. I hope people are still on this journey with us. It's been a
Yeah,
long time, isn't it?
it is a long time. We're definitely seeing people travel through it. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get to this one because this week's all about balance. And balance can mean quite a few different things. And I think I was reflecting on this, Jack. We've seen, kind of 9 weeks of content of different themes from, helping others to parenting to connecting to, obviously exercise, nutrition, all of this stuff that's gone before. And I think if you look at the overall makeup of our well-being, part of the challenge is putting it all into balance, isn't it? And I think building that self-awareness of which of those drivers of form, which of those drivers of our well-being is important, and then how to keep them in balance.
Yeah, and I think it's really good to be aware of what is average, what is balance. So whenever you say balance or average, people think in the middle, right? It's seesaw that will just stay perfectly there, when actually that's not the case. And we can get really frustrated doing that or feel really overwhelmed by the fact that we're trying to juggle and balance all these things, when actually it might just be your physical well-being that you need to prioritize more so than your mental, whatever it might be. Financial well-being might not be an issue for you. And you talk about the drivers of form. Some of those drivers will be more important to an individual than others, and so on. So for me, it's understanding what do I need, and what we've done in this past 9 weeks. What are some of these things that really connect with me that I can feel make a huge difference? Right, I'll prioritize those. That doesn't mean you neglect the rest. You still are aware of them, but I'll prioritize certain ones. And that way, I think we'll find a balance in our well-being, which leads to that consistency. Which for me, success, whatever success is, and what you define it, that being consistently happy could be your measure of success. And through prioritizing, through balancing, through that self-awareness, you create that consistency. That overall, you're pretty solid.
Yeah.
We're not expecting anyone to come off this and be a superstar every day because we're human beings. We've talked about that a lot. But
Mm.
finding that consistency through that self-awareness is really huge.
Yeah, I like that. And be intentional about our well-being. That's another phrase that's coming to my mind a lot. Is being intentional about how we're managing it, and hopefully now we're seeing our warriors build up that self-awareness that you're talking about there, and again can start to just instinctively know when things are out of balance. So for me, it's often how connected do I feel to friends and family, particularly as I'm a purpose-driven individual. I can be very focused on what I'm doing, and then I might notice that actually I'm not spending that sort of quality time I need with my children or my wife or whatever it might be. So just noticing when we might need to tweak and be intentional about the different elements of our well-being. I think the other bit, Jack, that's worth focusing on is talking about stress and how we balance stress with recovery. And we've touched on this before, and we've got a great session from Chibs about the science of the nervous system. But I think one of the things it's worth addressing again really is, like, stress isn't bad, is it? Stress enables us to do what we have to do, whether it's hit a deadline, whether it's run a 400-meter hurdle race, whether it's present here to camera, whatever it might be. That activates our autonomic nervous system and prepares us for the flight or fight response that we traditionally would have needed to kind of stay alive. But then what we're not doing enough is recovering from stress, is it? It's balancing stress with recovery in our day, in our weeks, and generally. Would you agree with all of that?
Yeah, 100%. And it's something that's always overlooked. We're always thinking, how can I do more? Instead of, well, how can I just do what I do better and then recover the rest of the time? Obviously, I coach Olympic athletes. I'm very lucky to do that, and I've been one myself. And to be honest, the recovery is the most important thing. And it's understanding, yes, I need to stress you. I need to put you in a stressful position for you to adapt, to change. But if I keep doing that without any recovery, without any break, and constantly upping that stress, we're going to fill that stress bucket that I'm sure lots of people have done a lot on with, various other courses and various other learnings. We're going to fill that stress bucket. We're not letting it out at any point through our recovery and through our techniques and our self-awareness, and then we're just going to overflow. And in case of sport, you're going to get injured, whether that's physically or mentally. You can get injured, you can just burn out, no different to how it is in the corporate world. So we have to be able to manage that. So my guys, you know, there are some days I watch people, my athletes, I'll watch them and go, now we're good, don't do any more, because there's no point in me stressing them when they're already stressed. For example, one of my athletes this week, actually, she has an exam today. So yesterday I just cut her down early because she was stressed about having to go home and revise afterwards. Yeah. So what am I going to get out of 3 more runs out of her that are total 200 meters? Actually, I'm going to make her more stressed, and then she's probably not going to be great in training today and won't be as prepared for the exam, what she feels as prepared anyway. So it's just understanding, when do I push and when do I ease off? And the fact that easing off actually is the most important thing. What we do with recovery and stress with training is simply that, to this point, that actually, will I gain anything from pushing you this far, or will I break you?
Yeah.
We're talking about balance here. That's essentially what it is. I'm always balancing on that edge of, can I be the best I can be, but also allow myself to recover to then be the best I can be.
Yeah, and there's a concept, isn't there, in kind of athletics about periodization, of, you know, peaking for certain training sessions and certainly for competition. And it's interesting to try and bring that to the workplace, isn't it? If you know you've got a busy period ahead, then, you know, maybe you need a bit of downtime in that work context to allow yourself to have top energy to handle that busy period. You know, I'm thinking maybe a deal or a project or whatever. But then again, if you've got a massive presentation, like your athlete who got the exam, then probably in the run up to that presentation, you want to be prioritizing those moments of recovery, the time to yourself. You know, we don't need to be running and sprinting all the way up to that presentation, because we're not going to perform as well as we could.
And I think that's actually really interesting how I will plan training, and other coaches will plan training, is, you know, I'm trying to get someone to run the fastest they can 9 months later. So it's a very much a long journey, but we'll have high days and we'll have low days. We don't go high day every day, because I can't ask that of them. In the middle of the week, they have an easier day. On the weekend, they have a whole day off. And what we also do in a slightly bigger, in the phases, my guys will work really hard for 3 weeks. Then I'll give them one really easy week before we come back up again. Because if I keep pushing them, it's just not going to happen. Yet, would we ever apply that to ourselves in a work environment, in a corporate environment? No. Maybe we should. Maybe we should think a little bit more about how we're applying our energy.
Yes, that's quite a nice challenge, isn't it? To think about, it might not be a 9-month event down the line, but if we were to look at the next 30 days in our working lives, what are the key milestones there, and what do we need to have top energy for? And then work backwards and think, right, let's plan the week with this event in mind, and then think, right, do I need to prioritize sleep that night and make sure I get an earlier night? Do I need to get my training done this week physically? Do I need to actually put some thinking and planning time in the diary that I'm not going to be interrupted, and be intentional about that time? And I think then we can start working towards those peak moments in a more structured way, can't we?
To be honest, we just started talking about this, and I'm thinking of myself, like, when have I ever done that for my own normal work outside of sport? I've never done that. I just kind of turn up and I just go at it. And if there's lots to do, I'm going to do lots. And if there isn't much, I'm not going to do as much, or I'll end up trying to find more stuff to do and end up being stressed. I never actually think, today's a day I'm going to work really hard, get lots done. And tomorrow, I'm just going to ease off a little bit. I'd just be, oh, there's stuff to do, let's get it done. Actually being more aware and more conscious might even help me as well. So I'm learning something whilst trying to deliver it.
Definitely. And so I won't go into too much detail about the nervous system, because we can check out the session from Chibs on that. But, you know, as I mentioned, nervous system, it's about flight or fight, and then rest and digest. So our nervous system gets activated to release stress hormones to prepare us to survive or deal with a perceived threat. And we need to deal with that sort of perceived pressure. We need that to be functional. But then there's the recovery bit, the rest and digest equivalent in the workplace. How can we do that in our jobs? What does recovery look like, Jack, in the workplace for you?
For me, I think a lot of what we've learned so far will identify that when we're talking about our physical well-being and so on, and getting out in nature and making sure you have those breaks. And we talked a lot about management of our time and trying to be more effective. For me, all those lessons we've learned, I think there's quite a lot in there. but also I think it's communication's really key.
Yeah.
So actually communicating with the people around you that you might either report directly into, or that they report into you, or you work alongside, actually communicating with them that this is how I'm working. I need, I'm giving you permission to approach me on this day or not this day, and whatever it might be. Just creating a few rules, a few ground rules, communicating, this is how I am, this is how I'm going to try and prioritize my own well-being. And through that, we're also then modeling good well-being for the people around us. And hopefully, we create a culture and environment where everyone then starts communicating it rather than the one person. But for me, communication would be really key on this.
Yeah, I think you're right. And something simple as blocking out time in the diary for self-care or for recovery or downtime or dedicated work time or thinking time is a simple one, and it's an easy win, isn't it? Where you're not going to get interrupted, you're not going to get meetings put in, and everybody's clear on what you're doing there. And that could be dinner with family, it could be lunch with family, whatever it might be that you need to recover from the stresses of the day.
I've had a few conversations within a corporate environment, and then obviously in my sporting world as well, where I've literally said on a certain day, I need to do this, and if you let me do this, or I'm going to go do it anyway, but if you let me do this, I'll be a superstar the next day.
Yeah.
But if you make me do this, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm probably not going to do that to the best of my ability. Then I'm going to not be in a great place because I'm not pleased about it.
Yeah.
So then I'm not going to perform the next day. So sometimes understanding that little bit of compromise, I do it with people all the time. Sometimes there might be something really important that someone needs to go and attend. Yeah, they might have work and so on. But if I give them that, they'll then work hard for me in return because, I've shown that I care about them as a human being, which all links back to that communication thing. But yeah, I think there's so many ways of addressing this, and there'll be far more creative people than you and I listening that can come up with some fantastic stuff. But for me, I'd probably look at communication first and how we can do that on a smaller scale rather than that huge corporate scale.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking outside of the workplace, because stress can come from many different angles. I think one big one for me is our relationship with technology, and how we're consuming content, whether it's from social media or news, and where there's a lot of bad news going on at the moment. What are your thoughts there, Jack, on kind of managing stress around digital and tech?
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I watched the news, to be honest, on a personal level, just because I got fed up with negative and never seeing anything positive. And I've got enough negative stuff that comes into my head, to be honest with you, Rob. Yeah. I have my days where it's enough negativity. I don't need to add to it. And that kind of linked into social media. So obviously I've been quite big on social media. I've got quite a big following from my athletic career. And at times I've spent far too much time on that. And actually it was only yesterday that I decided to come off them completely. So I still have them there as a signpost, but I don't follow anyone. I have no friends, just so that I'm not constantly comparing myself, putting myself under more stress. And also I'm staying more present. I'm staying connected and communicating with the people around me rather than looking at a screen as much. And I made that decision because of stress management. And I didn't want to constantly compare myself to things that are unrealistic or so on. So, that was a huge step to take, I think, for myself, because social media has been a big part of my career. And I always had the excuse that it helped me with work and got me business. And actually that wasn't the case. I just spent all the time not doing business on it and so on. So, and I can already feel, it's only been a day, but I'd already reduced my time on social media. And yet already knowing that I don't have to check something or see what other people are doing, has made a huge difference to how I feel already. And I know you're thinking about this with social media as well in certain ways.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a big user of LinkedIn, and I think that's the channel I try and use to promote positive mental health and share sort of advice and tips. But I think I'm feeling pretty fatigued with that as well. And again, looking forward to having a digital detox over the Christmas break, where I just shut down for 2 weeks. And for me, that's important to do that a few times a year as well. I tend to avoid Twitter and Facebook and even Instagram, because I think you in Twitter you can just get lost in the vitriol. I think it's a very negative place. But I think that idea of people displaying their their perfect lives on Instagram. I don't find it a very fulfilling experience. I think LinkedIn generally I do find quite uplifting on the mental health agenda. I think there's some good content there, and people are in the community are pretty supportive. But my thing is, we definitely need breaks. We need clear breaks where we're in the moment and in the physical world.
Yeah, and that's no different to what we've said on everything else, is it? It's not saying you shouldn't work, you shouldn't have any stress coming in your life, you shouldn't be on social media. There's nothing saying that, but it's about managing it in the same way that we manage want to manage our mental health, physical health, whatever it might be, all the well-being.
Yeah.
It's just being very conscious, and I think a lot of this is now coming back to that self-awareness, very conscious of what we are taking in. What are we putting out, and when are we also giving ourselves breaks and managing ourselves? So I think that's probably the learning from today. I think that's kind of reinforced it for me.
Yeah, definitely. So everyone, you'll start to hear some of this might feel a little bit linking into the other sessions, and it is. So worth checking out the manage session on how to manage our day if you're feeling like you're not getting enough breaks in the day. Again, I think it's about communicating. It's about being intentional about how we are going to work, and making sure we're prioritizing our well-being amongst all of the other responsibilities that we have in life and in work, and thinking about our relationship with digital and making sure we're getting those breaks from it, whether it's a complete shutdown or a shutdown before bedtime, whatever it might be. So managing our stress with intent. So have a think about that. Check out the other sessions, and look forward to join you again in the last couple of weeks of the course. Thank you so much.
Magic.